On this inauguration and happy Martin Luther King Day, let's take a peek at some of the legends and icons like MLK that have made it difficult for Ollie Gordon to crack the top 10 running backs all-time list.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All-Day State Today. We're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Whether it's the final drive or the last-minute victory, the NFL playoffs are more exciting, especially because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of the Cowboy football legacy that has been built up over the years, primarily has been behind the backs of running backs. So the question, of course, is always going to be, where does Ollie Gordon stack up in some of the great running backs that have come through Oklahoma State University? Of course, we could go backwards, but we're going to add some suspense. And we're going to start at the top because the top is probably the easiest to break down. The GOAT, Barry Sanders, is the greatest running back of all time, I think, either college or NFL history. But collegiately, there's really no questioning that. Everybody is very well aware of his 1988 Heisman-winning season, whenever he was able to catapult himself into the record books by putting up numbers that might never be touched again. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people out there that are trying to eclipse some of these statistics, but it's not going to be easy. As Barry Sanders did go on his Heisman campaign, he rushed for 2,850 yards, which got close to being eclipsed by Ashton Jeanty. I'm glad that it didn't happen. To be honest, there's a lot of differentiation between Barry Sanders and Ashton Jeanty, the level of football, the amount of fourth quarters that Barry didn't play on, so on and so forth. But Ashton Jeanty's a bad mamma jamma, but he's not quite Barry Sanders, so it's nice to see that record remains. Single game rushing record leader at Oklahoma State all-time, Barry Sanders of 332 yards. He comes in fifth all-time because he only played a couple seasons, realistically, at 3,797 yards. Career rushing touchdowns, 53 career. He had 42 in a single season, obviously 1988, which is a year that nobody will ever forget. Speaking of that same year, Barry Sanders had over 5 touchdowns over a handful of times during the course of that season. And he's also one of only 3 running backs who still stack up on the career touchdowns list as well for all positions at Oklahoma State. Number 2, it's got to be his battering ram buddy for a little bit of time at Oklahoma State, and against that's Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas had a massive season, very reminiscent of Ollie Gordon's most recent massive season, where he rushed for 1,767 yards in 1987. But he is the career rushing leader at Oklahoma State with over 5,000 yards rushing. He's also somebody that was able to chip in 293 yards for one particular game. He brought in 47 touchdowns as a Cowboy in a career. And throughout the course of a season, he's 4th all-time at 21. Number 3, the other guy, like Barry, like Thurman, that is on the all-time career TDs list for every position, not just running back, it's Terry Miller, who does have 49 career TDs. He also has 27 TDs in a single season, being number 2 all-time behind Barry Sanders. As it pertains to his career, he's number 2 all-time behind Thurman with 4,754 yards. He also had a massive season in 1976, putting up 1,887 yards for a single season. And he's somebody that recognized recently and put to the Ring of Honor. And I think it's great to have some of that connection to some of the past guys like Terry Miller, so some of the younger generation can kind of feel that same love that we have for that dude. Number 5 for me is, of course, going to be a little bit close to the heart here, but Tatum Bell. Tatum Bell revolutionized the fandom side of the game for me as a kid. And he comes in number 9 in Oklahoma State career history with 3,409 yards. One of the few major recruits to come out of the state of Texas and be able to play right away as a freshman and make a big name for himself throughout the course of his career. Tatum Bell also is an individual that I think a lot of us will remember for some of the periods in time where we kind of were switching and coming out of an old era and into a new era. Tatum Bell also is number 7 all-time in single season touchdowns with 16. And, you know, again, he opened the door, I think, for a lot of individuals to play that position before coming by way of Oklahoma State. So number 4 all-time, I personally have Tatum Bell. Number 5 all-time, I think I'm going to have to go with the dude, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard, of course, is number 8 all-time at Oklahoma State in career rushing yards with 3,459. He's number 2 in single season rushing yards with 2,094 in 2019. Chuba Hubbard also was a member that was almost in the 300 club with 296 yards of rushing in 2019 as well in one particular game. When it comes to the career TD mark, he's also in the top 10 Oklahoma State history, number 9, right below Jeremy Smith and Tatum Bell. Tatum Bell's number 7 all-time career touchdowns with 34. Chuba Hubbard is number 33. So I think it's very fitting that they're right behind each other. Chuba also is somebody that kind of was big time in multiple areas other than just running the ball. He was really big time out of the backfield, which was something that Tatum Bell was good at as well, but it wasn't really a mainstay at Oklahoma State for quite some time. Now, for me, next on the list, I've got to go with Justice Hill. Justice Hill is number 10 all-time in career touchdowns at Oklahoma State with 30. He also is number 10 all-time in single-season touchdowns with 15. Justice Hill also is an Oklahoma kid that came by way of Booker T. Washington. In his career, he's 7th all-time at Oklahoma State with 3,539 yards rushing. Additionally, Justice Hill is continuing to do his thing in the NFL, which I think puts a good name on the running back position alongside guys like Chuba Hubbard and Jaylen Warren that continue to kind of put that particular spot, at least at light in a big way at Oklahoma State. Next on the list, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to go with Kendall Hunter. Kendall Hunter is 10th all-time in single-season rushing yards, 1,555 in 2008. Kendall Hunter is also 4th all-time at Oklahoma State in career rushing yards, 4,181. Not to mention, whenever you're looking back at Kendall Hunter, that was in the beginning of the Mike Gundy kind of establishment era. And without him, I don't know that we would have got a lot of the running back names to continue to come. That's why he had 37 career touchdowns, which ranks him 5th all-time in Oklahoma State history. He's also tied for 7th with Tatum Bell, all-time single season with 16 touchdowns, which he did not only in 2008, but he did it again in 2010, which is yet another reason why he is up here on this list. Next, we got to go with David Thompson. If you're like me, that was kind of the beginnings of the running back position that I got to see all the time. I didn't get to see Barry live. So Barry live to me at first was R.W. McQuarters. Then I got to see Tatum Bell. Well, ladies and gentlemen, David Thompson is number 3 all-time in Oklahoma State career rushing with 4,318 yards. And again, this is when we were not all that great and we didn't have, the best O-lines in the world. So the fact that David Thompson is up this high is absolutely phenomenal to me. He's also number 2 in single game rushing. In 1996, David Thompson rushed for 321 yards. And when it comes to just serviceability, in an era of Oklahoma State football, we really didn't have an overabundance of big things happening and big names coming down the pipeline. David Thompson was one of the bright spots in a down era of Oklahoma State football. So I feel like David Thompson is also one of the most under-recognized Cowboys to do it all time. So now we have 2 spots left here. And before we get to the last 2, we have to give an honorable mention to Ernest Anderson. Ernest Anderson is 6th all-time in Cowboy rushing, 3,780 yards. He's also 4th all-time in single season with 1,877. But number 9 for me has got to be Ollie Gordon. Now, I did go back and forth here, which is why we're going to have Joe Randall rounding up the 10 spot here. But Ollie Gordon does crack the top 10. And I went back and forth between him and Joseph Randall. Joseph Randall obviously has the Big 12 title at his resume, but Ollie Gordon, it's not his fault he got hit in the backfield 51% of the time this season. Last season, your teams didn't really know how to figure him out. But even the teams that did stack the box, it was a little bit more complex than that. And Ollie Gordon proved to be a one-man wrecking crew. And the more we look back at this season, I think we have more affinity for Ollie Gordon in the 2023 campaign, which has him 6th all-time single season, right behind Thurman Thomas, 1,732 yards. Ollie Gordon is also, he pops up twice in the single game rushing records, number 9 and number 10 all time, with a 281-yard game and a 271-yard game, both in 2023. He is just shy of the top 10 when it comes to career rushing. He was like 2,930 or something to that effect. So he's just shy of that 3,000 mark, which would put him in the top 12 all time. Career touchdowns, he is already there, number 6 all time with 36, right behind Kennel Hunter, and just ahead of Joseph Randall, who had 40 career touchdowns, so just a little bit more than Ollie Gordon. Single season, Ollie Gordon obviously had 21 touchdowns in 2023, which is going to put him up there with Chuba Hubbard and Thurman Thomas. And when it comes to single game, 5 touchdown performances, Barry had several. Ollie Gordon is the only other running back to have 5 TDs in one game, and that was 2023 against BYU. So that is going to be the running back crew. Obviously, you're going to have Joseph Randall round this thing out. Number 10 all-time career rushing, 3,085 yards. And somebody that, I don't know really gets enough credit, but other than just, the touchdowns and the Big 12 title, he's single season number 3 all-time with 24 rushing touchdowns. And if it wouldn't have been how it shook out for him in the NFL, I think his name would be revered even much more than it is. But in Cowboy country, when you go back and look at some of the 2011 stuff, the dude was special. So we have to have the acknowledgement there. But congratulations, Ollie Gordon. I think you do crack the top 10 all time at Oklahoma State. And I think that's saying something, right? Because you're leaving off guys like Tyreek Hill and Chris Carson. And, of course, we talked about Ernest Anderson. Jaylen Warren's obviously not going to kind of crack into this list as well. So there's a lot of big-time running backs. Vernon Morency, that had successful NFL careers, that aren't even on this list. That's how impressive this one position has been always, but it goes back to guys like Terry Miller and Thurman Thomas and David Thompson and Ernest Anderson to get to guys like Joseph Randall and Ollie Gordon. So we're appreciative of the past, and we're appreciative of Ollie Gordon because on top of all of the accolades and being the only Doak Walker Award winner of all time at Oklahoma State, he also returned at a time when it seemed unlikely, right, in this NIL transfer market area for people to be dedicated to one spot no matter what. That's a rare breed. And he was so involved in multiple basketball games, tennis events, softball, baseball. Ollie Gordon was legitimately all around campus all the time, making stuff happen just because he loved being there. So that actually, in my opinion, plays a factor as well. The next factor that you need to take into your potential money-making endeavors is going to be super simplistic, more than, less than. It's Prize Picks. You know what it is. The place where you can get real money action on sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's playoffs, regular season, doesn't matter. Prize Picks makes it easier for you to win big while enjoying all of the football action. The playoff time is obviously here. The Super Bowl is getting closer and closer, so there's no better way for you to get in on the action with Prize Picks. The way it works is you simply just pick more or less on 2 players, at least 2 players. If your hit is a winner, then you could up to 1,000 times your cash dollars. 1,000 times. I didn't say that incorrectly, just by making the right picks. It's all about the big-time moments, and, of course, Tylan Wallace could have had a big-time moment, even though Lamar Jackson missed him. He was wide open on that 2-point conversion, but it's all right. We're not gonna get too tied up there. Congratulations, Justice Hill, Tylen Wallace, making it to that area. Anywho, if you're ready to run your game this football season, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is $50 just for playing. So do not wait. Make sure that you can take your game to the next level with Prize Picks, because with Prize Picks, you can now get on and run your game. So the football process is going, I would say, rather swimmingly at the moment. Congratulations, Mike Gundy, for being willing to make the changes and the coaching staff that he's been able to bring in. But nothing was going to trump some of the action that we had this weekend or coming up to the weekend, especially as it pertained to basketball. Men's hoops obviously has not had a super successful season. It's hard to argue against the success at home, though. They've only lost one home game. Their road record is identically flipped. And so we win a lot at home, but we lose almost every game on the road. But that's kind of okay with me. Let me know down in the comments section what your top 10 running back game shakeup would look like differently. But it also, did you expect more or less out of Cowboy basketball at this particular point in time? I'm okay with where we are. And that is sad to see Oklahoma State basketball, especially an Oklahoma State basketball fan that grew up in Gallagher all the time, to say that this is acceptable, but it is. Winning in Gallagher, to me, was number one. If you lost all of your games on the road, that's okay. We'd figure it out. But to me, you have to build that experience back up. And just like what we'll talk about in wrestling, and that atmosphere, that crowd, people are kind of, asking why is basketball not reminiscent of what we have in wrestling? But part of it is you have to win at home, right? And I think that's one of the things that allowed us as a fan base to continue to keep getting behind Travis Ford. Is Travis Ford may not have been a great coach. From the X's and O's standpoint, it was somewhat reminiscent of Mike Boynton, but he's an adequate, more than adequate, equal level to Boynton recruiter. But the X's and O's was an issue, although he would still find ways to win massive top 5, top 3, top 10 games in Gallagher quite often. Now, it might be right after we lose 4 or 5 in a row, or we might lose 4 or 5 in a row right after that. But that is something that Travis Ford did do, is he brought massive wins to Gallagher. Therefore, we were still able to kind of pack that place out. It does help when you have guys like LeBron Nash and Markel Brown to go alongside, some of the great plays that Marcus Smart would make. But even on top of all of the bad dudes he had around him, including Michael Cobbins, it was a little bit different. Or even if Cobbins was a little bit of a different area, you get my point. You get my drift. This Steve Lutz team is fine. And you have to be able to come up big in big moments and big games. And for all of us here at Oklahoma State country, the Remember the 10 game is big. Of course, recognizing the 10 victims that died in a plane crash. And correct me if I'm wrong, I do indeed believe that was also coming home from a Colorado game. So it was kind of ironic that we played Colorado on this day, and the Cowboys get the 10-point victory, 83-73 over the Colorado Buffaloes. So this does mean a lot because of the day that it is. And shout out to Doug Gottlieb for kind of continuing to rock with the Remember the 10 and talk to his players about it. I know his season is not going great up there in Wisconsin, but nonetheless, I appreciate that he is that connected, and it does legitimately mean that much to him. Oklahoma State decided to have a Bryce Thompson-filled day as Bryce popped off for 15 points. Abu Usman had another big day with 14 points. Robert Jennings was able to chip in 9 as Marcellus Chi Avery had 15 as well. Patrick Sumnick, the former West Virginia Mountaineer, chipped in 10. It was really awesome to see Connor Dow get out there and get meaningful minutes. I think he had over 13, 14-ish minutes. He was able to score a couple baskets. Khalil Brantley obviously was involved. Brandon Newman provides meaningful minutes. We got some players at the end of the game that don't typically get to see the floor a whole lot, which is pretty awesome to see. Arturo Dean was able to chip in 5 points, even though I feel like he looked a little out of control and wild at times. But the Cowboys got a big win, realistically speaking, just because you have to be able to stay somewhat competitive. And 2-4, 500 right now in Big 12 is just that, somewhat competitive. 10-7 overall is just that, somewhat competitive. We're not going to wow anybody, right? But this was a pretty complete game. We shot 46% from the floor. We shot 35% from three-point range, which isn't bad. It's not the target goal, but it's not bad. 73% from free throw line isn't bad. We out-rebounded them by 13, which is obviously pretty impressive. Turnovers, we were able to kind of, make some hay there, and we were able to pull out 12 steals as well. So I think this was a good sign for Cowboy basketball. And I think it was a good opportunity for us to kind of get a little bit more space before we take on Arizona tomorrow. The Cowgirls, on the other hand, they got another W, which is good because they needed to get back on track. The first game since 2018-19 being ranked, and we dropped the daggone thing to a very lackluster Houston squad. So we go on the road, and we have to take care of business against UCF. UCF is a team that's below Houston in the standings. So we had to kind of make up for it, and I would say that we did in a 72-58 victory. The Cowgirls needed to bounce back, and I would say they absolutely did that. And it also kind of keeps pace with the top half of the Big 12. Staley Hurd had another big-time day, dropping 23 points. Hanagret Asi does her thing with 15. Tegan Magassa has a double-figure night with 12 points, while Micah Gray chips in 11. That was the bulk of the scoring, although, Macy Heward chipped in, Stacey Jones, Praise Egvaregba was involved. Jaden Wooten put in massive minutes. That was big time and just facilitation of moving people around the floor. We also got some girls in that don't really get to play a whole heck of a lot, so I think that was a pretty cool deal to see as well. And the Cowgirls, they have a lot of momentum now that they've got this thing back to rolling again as they get set to take on a TCU squad that was just top 10. I didn't relook at the rankings, but they were just a top 10 squad a couple days ago, so I would assume they're at least still top 15. That'll be a big, barometer style of game for how it's going to shake out in this conference at the end of the day. But it was good to see both squads get a W on the Remember the 10 day. I know the Cowgirls were on the road, so it's not exactly the same thing, but same day. The amount of reverence, and of course the Cowgirls got their experience with the Remember the 4 stuff as well. So it was good to see both teams get kind of back on track. The Cowboys are just, fighting, and that's all you can ask for after the last few seasons, and the fact that I don't want to call it an excuse, but, Steve Lutz, he did get hired a little bit late and didn't exactly get off the ground running when it came to the transfer portal. So I feel like he did pretty good, just like you can do pretty good too with playoff action. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to continue to be a little upset about the Tylan Wallace being missed wide open in the end zone for the 2-point conversion. But nonetheless, FanDuel makes it easier for you to enjoy the NFL playoffs no matter what is happening, especially because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if your first bet is a winner. That is $300 back in bonus bets to keep your action going. The FanDuel app is super easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keep you very excited all the time. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 back in bonus bets. Make sure that you go to FanDuel.com. Make this NFL playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So we get to shift gears here before we skedaddle on off of here and talk a little bit about wrestling. Not just about the fact that it was a W, but this was actually the first time this season where it's been close whatsoever throughout the course of the night. And this thing did get started off. So, of course, first we got to give props because we've got top 5 victories, top 10 victories, top 20, top 25 victories this season. And none of them were it wasn't even close. West Virginia was the most difficult duel we've had all season. So if we're beating number 5 ranked team in the country, number 9 ranked team in the country, number 12 ranked team, if we're beating them like a redheaded stepchild, then West Virginia should not be number 22. West Virginia just looked like a top 10 squad all day, every day. So we got to give them those props before we get to the fact that apparently they want all the smoke. And Mr. Jet Strickenberger started the night out. Congratulations on your victory over Troy Spratley, who's now kind of going a little bit backwards. He's had a couple losses in his last few outings here. So he's not the same 125 ranked number 2 in the country guy that he was a couple weeks ago. But maybe this is the things that he needed to kind of get back to where he was. He's got to iron out some details. But that dude standing over him after the biggest upset of the night and doing the shooting gun little thingy, Mojave, whatever, the cute dance thing he was trying to do, that, if you're looking for bulletin board material, hopefully that is utilized. And hopefully somehow or another, Jet Strickenberger and Troy Spratley can find a way to team up against each other once again in the Big 12s. I cannot wait for it. Cale Hughes had another big-time night. Taking Jameson seems to be more and more comfortable with scoring, especially recently. Cutter Sheets put up a valiant effort. Caleb Fish made it wild at the end. That thing was super, super close, but he got crazy at the end, scored a bunch of points. Peyton Hall, I'm not going to get up and down about Cam Amin. I mean, Cam Amin's been the most underwhelming individual for me this season, while Dean Hamidi Jr., Gene Hamidi, has been the bright spot for me. Dean Hamidi, other than Wyatt Henderson, has been the funnest wrestler to watch all season, and he absolutely dominated a top 30 individual. Dustin Plott had a very outstanding performance against a top 17 dude. Luke Serber, it was tight, right? But he'll have an opportunity to have redemption as well to make it a little bit more convincing. Wyatt Hendrickson, however, after the Luke Serber close W, the superstar gets a pin in 43 seconds. And now we get to hit the road against number 5 ranked Northern Iowa. And this will be kind of interesting because, like I was just saying, we faced a number 5 team in the country already, and we absolutely dismantled them from the onset. So West Virginia is either a top 5 program right now, or we just really had a bad night and we needed it to have a little bit of a wake up to get ready for this next top 5 duel. All righty, y'all. I reckon that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you're the bread, the bricks, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, the funny stuff, the funky stuff. You're all of it. Hit the stars, leave a review, do what you do. Alrighty, y'all. Later, my taters.